Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're sort of peeling back that really pristine, almost high-definition filter on modern digital life.
Yeah.
We want to examine the profound psychological costs, really, of this constant curation we're all doing. And this isn't just about vanity, or narcissism. Those are maybe easy labels to throw around.
It's easy, yeah.
This is meant to be a deep dive into, the architecture of the contemporary self, how we're built now.
Precisely. And our mission here, I think, is to move way beyond just looking at the aesthetics. The perfect lighting, the captions that sound just right.
Right.
We need to look directly into what psychoanalysis, maybe especially through a Freudian lens, can tell us about this obsession with digital perfection.
Oh.
Because it isn't just surface level stuff. What we're dealing with, I think, is a kind of quiet, smiling epidemic.
A smiling epidemic.
Wow.
That's unsettling.
It is. It's a fundamental sort of systemic neurosis.
Yeah.
And it's rooted in these really primal, deep-seated fears. Things like abandonment, unworthiness.
So primal stuff.
Yeah, we're essentially trying to peer into the, let's call it the psychic landscape of the feed.
I find that term, the smiling epidemic, really profoundly unsettling. Because it just captures that dissonance so perfectly, doesn't it?
It does.
We're all taking part in this performance of, a flawless existence while hiding all the effort it takes.
Constantly hiding the strings.
So let's cut straight to the core paradox here. It feels like the promise of this digital self, social media, creating content, it's supposed to be about sharing, right? Connecting, community.
That's the sales pitch, definitely.
So why does it so often feel so exhausting and, frankly, isolating?
Well, I think the sources we're drawing on suggest that promise is actually a very sophisticated misdirection. The core paradox is really this. The digital self as it exists now is less about genuinely sharing and much, much more about proving you exist.
Yeah.
Proving you're legible. Understand?
Proving you exist, okay.
Yeah. And the pressure to be perfect, to post flawlessly, it's really an effort to avoid, two psychological terrors, basically.
Two, okay, what are they?
First, there's the terror of being seen as flawed, messy, incomplete,
Right.
human.
Right, can't have that.
And second, and maybe this is even worse in our hypervisible world, is the terror of being seen as invisible or just irrelevant.
Invisibility, that hits hard. So the goal isn't really connection then?
Yeah, not primarily.
The goal is the illusion of control. We think if we can just control the narrative, control how we appear,
then we can control the external judgment. Exactly.
Yeah.
We've essentially traded authenticity, which is always messy, unpredictable by nature, for safety, or what we think is safety, which we try to achieve through this meticulous, almost sterile perfection.
But here's the critical twist, and you touched on this. Why doesn't trading for safety actually make us feel safe?
Right, that's the kicker.
Why does the performance itself end up causing so much anxiety?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we really need to keep coming back to as we dive into the symptoms here.
Okay, let's do that. Section 1 then. The symptom and the fear of erasure. The moment we start feeling this performance anxiety, this need for perfection, it's often the very moment we wake up.
Literally the first thing.
I want to talk about that morning ritual. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you are too. And I bet you, listening, understand this compulsion. Before our feet even hit the floor, maybe before the fog's even cleared from our brains.
The thumb is already scrolling.
Yeah, the thumb is scrolling. And we're not checking in to catch up on world news usually, or even really connect with a friend first thing. We're performing a kind of verification ritual.
It's a really profound act of self-submission when you think about it.
Submission? How so?
Well, it's a compulsive, self-administered worth check. The very first thing we do, often before even acknowledging our physical reality, our own bodies, is submit ourselves to external validation. That scroll is basically us asking the collective digital unconscious, am I still in the game? Am I still enough?
Wow. Asking the void.
Pretty much. We need that immediate status confirmation because, well, if you don't engage right away, you feel like you've fallen behind, don't you?
Oh, definitely. FOMO hits hard.
Or worse, maybe, that your life, your existence, might have somehow ceased to be relevant in that collective consciousness overnight.
That sounds dramatic, but it feels true.
It feels true because that immediate, silent, scrolling non-recognition, it can feel like a tiny death, a micro-erasure.
And the agony, the sheer effort we put into polishing even simple content is just astounding sometimes.
Oh, it's huge.
It eats up enormous amounts of time and psychic energy that, let's be honest, could probably be spent doing something genuinely productive or just restful.
Or just restful, exactly.
Let's try and identify this phenomenon clearly. Let's call it the 47-minute filter. You know, that agonizing effort put into polishing every little piece of content that gets broadcast.
That time, whether it's 47 minutes or, frankly, 4 hours, sometimes that's pure distilled neurosis at work.
Distilled neurosis, okay.
Think about the specific behaviors. It's rewriting a LinkedIn headline 7 times because, I don't know, optimizing human potential sounds way better than just saying you help people with their schedules.
Right. Guilty.
Or debating the use of a semicolon versus an ellipsis in an Instagram caption for 20 minutes.
Oh, God, yes.
It's editing out the chaos, the exhaustion, the argument that literally happened 5 minutes before the photo was snapped.
So the joy has to be spotless to be seen as valid.
Exactly. Only spotless joy counts.
Okay, so what are the actual stakes of that polish? What is it we're really trying to eliminate?
We're trying to eliminate the evidence of imperfection because we fear deep down that imperfection will inevitably lead to rejection.
Rejection, back to that primal fear?
Always. When a young woman deletes a perfectly fine selfie because, I don't know, the shadow on her face makes her nose look slightly off.
Right.
Or when a parent digitally wipes away the crumbs and the mess from a kid's birthday party photo, they're engaging in psychic self-defense.
Psychic self-defense, not just vanity.
Not just vanity, it feels like survival. The raw, the real, the messy. That's not content in the digital economy, is it?
No, it's seen as a liability.
It's seen as a profound risk. And that risk feels existentially threatening because exposing true vulnerability means exposing yourself to true criticism. Or worse, indifference.
That makes me wonder, though, why does something like poor lighting or maybe an inconsistent vibe on your profile, why does that translate so immediately and powerfully into a feeling of personal failure?
Yeah, it's disproportionate, isn't it?
Totally. Why does a slightly blurry photo feel like some kind of massive character flaw?
Because the digital unconscious, as we're calling it, seems to operate on a principle of almost absolute criteria. The stakes feel incredibly high.
How so?
Low engagement or just bad aesthetics. It registers unconsciously as abandonment. You scroll past someone's post without noticing or engaging.
You basically erased them for a second.
In a symbolic sense, yes, they've been erased for that moment. So to the ego, getting, say, 50 likes on a post that you secretly hoped would get 500. That isn't just interpreted as, oh, the algorithm didn't pick it up, or maybe it was bad timing.
No, it feels personal.
It's unconsciously interpreted as rejection. There's a kind of collective verdict. You failed. You failed to be lovable today.
Oof. Failed to be lovable.
And that taps right into the most primal human fear there is. The fear of being kicked out of the tribe. Exile.
And this fear of non-acceptance, it fuels that habit of delaying posting, right? Because the content is perpetually not ready or not ideal.
Oh, constantly.
I see this everywhere. In every industry, people have these brilliant ideas just sitting in their drafts folders.
For months. Years sometimes.
Not because the thought is incomplete, but because the polish is missing.
Exactly. The delay is a form of procrastination, sure, but it's born from perfectionism. And perfectionism so often is just fear wearing a fancy coat.
Fear in disguise.
Yeah. The problem isn't the incompleteness of the idea itself. It's the lack of that perfect sheen that makes it feel vulnerable to attack.
So posting something authentic, unedited, that's like going out naked.
Pretty much. You're exposing yourself fully. And we've been systematically trained, haven't we, that the digital world doesn't reward that kind of exposure.
No, it rewards curation, performance.
It rewards curation. So we substitute genuine, messy interaction for this illusion of control that we achieve through perfect presentation. The anxiety keeps the post locked away, safe from that perceived judgment.
Which brings us inevitably to that universal pain point of digital existence, the fraudulent comparison.
Ah, yes. The doom scroll comparison.
We are constantly comparing our own chaotic, messy, behind-the-scenes reality, like, the fatigue, the confusion, the actual pile of laundry on the floor.
The dishes in the sink.
Exactly. We compare that to everyone else's flawlessly edited highlight reel, and we end up feeling like complete frauds in our own lives.
And that comparison is so toxic because the two things being compared are fundamentally incomparable, aren't they?
Right. Apples and oranges. Or apples and perfectly filtered projections of apples.
Exactly. You're comparing your chaotic internal state, your inner mess, to another person's externalized performance of order and success.
And their aesthetic, it becomes your anxiety.
That's it right there. Their aesthetic becomes your anxiety.
Right.
And so you feel compelled to perform even harder to try and meet that invented external standard.
Which just feeds the whole cycle.
It's the definition of a toxic feedback loop. We keep moving further and further away from our actual real experience, thinking that the performance of perfection is the only way to soothe the anxiety that's caused by seeing everyone else's performance of perfection.
But hang on, doesn't the thinking here suggest that even when we do hit that invented standard, even when the post does well, that feeling of unworthiness or being a fraud, it doesn't really go away?
Absolutely not. Because we're not just trying to catch up to a standard of performance. We're trying to survive the psychic implication, the feeling that we're fundamentally less than, simply because we're less optimized, less polished.
So the anxiety doesn't vanish when a post performs well?
No, it just shifts, it resets, it attaches itself to the next post. The machine needs constant feeding. The anxiety is never truly resolved.
Okay, so the machine needs feeding. Let's talk about the machine itself then. Section 2. The digital superego and the algorithmic conscience.
Right.
We've kind of established the individual fear, that terror of erasure, the anxiety of comparison. But who, or maybe what, is dictating the rules of this agonizing performance? Who's the judge watching the stage?
Excellent question. This brings us to a really crucial shift, I think, in how we can apply psychoanalysis today, specifically looking at Freud's concept of the superego.
The superego. Okay, refresh us quickly.
So Freud defined the superego as that internalized authority, basically. Society's rules, parental expectations, the voice of conscience that lives inside us.
The shoulds and shouldn'ts.
Exactly. He used to whisper things like, be good, be obedient, be worthy. But what the analysis we're drawing on suggests is that the superego has been, well, outsourced. It's been externalized, digitized.
Outsourced to what?
To the algorithm. The algorithm is the new, impersonal, and seemingly absolute authority figure.
Wow. Okay. So the demands have changed then. Radically.
Completely. The digital superego doesn't just demand be good. It screams, doesn't it? Through every trending hashtag, every notification.
What does it scream?
Be viral, be aesthetic, be optimized, be always on, be effortlessly successful.
Effortlessly. Yeah, that's key.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it starts to explain why we feel such profound anxiety when we step away from the device, even for a short time.
Because we're stepping away from the gaze of the authority.
We're stepping away from the gaze of the authority that now validates our very existence, or seems to.
And if you fail to be optimized, if your content's inconsistent, or your color palette is off, or you just don't post often enough.
You're not just seen as imperfect, you risk being seen as irrelevant, obsolete.
So the criteria for self-worth validation, they're entirely external now, run by metrics.
Largely, yes. That core internal struggle the ego wrestling with, am I worthy of love? It's now become this external quantitative check, performed by a non-human algorithm.
We are literally outsourcing our conscience.
That's a great way to put it.
Our internal struggle for worth is now being managed, or at least heavily influenced, by a system that's designed purely for profit and attention capture. We refresh our analytics like a gambler checking a slot machine. Tell me more about that immediate hit we get. Why is that so powerful?
Well, the dopamine hit is absolutely essential to the mechanism because it offers a temporary reprieve, a short break from that screaming digital superego.
A moment of quiet.
Exactly. Each notification, it's a fleeting confirmation.
Right.
Okay. You still exist in their eyes. You still matter for a second.
It's basically an addiction to external affirmation.
It really is. And the problem with this externalization is profound. In the classical Freudian model, the superego was internal, right? So there was at least the possibility of some internal dialogue, some negotiation, maybe some integration.
You could argue with it, maybe.
You could try. Now, our sense of conscience, our self-worth, is increasingly managed by this opaque, frankly uncaring system. We end up trading internal peace for external validation that is inherently fleeting and rapidly depreciates in value. You always need the next hit.
And we try to buy our way out of this whole neurosis, don't we? Using the very tools the system provides. I mean, look at how the self-help industrial complex often operates. It promises liberation, but often just delivers another set of standards, another cage.
Oh, absolutely. It has effectively weaponized wellness.
Weaponized wellness. Explain that.
Well, the weaponization of wellness is kind of the perfect manifestation of this aesthetic superego we're talking about. We're constantly commanded, be your authentic self.
Right.
That's the mantra.
Everywhere. Be authentic.
But, as the analysis points out, this authenticity is highly conditional. It has to fit a certain mold, usually a perfectly curated Canva template.
Right.
Vulnerability is allowed, even encouraged, but only if it's the right kind of vulnerability.
What's the right kind?
It has to be aesthetic. It needs to be framed during the golden hour, preferably. It should be scripted for maximum inspirational impact. Maybe even written by a ghostwriter who specializes in vulnerable authenticity.
Oh, wow. So, if your actual pain isn't postable, if your breakdown isn't picturesque, then it's basically deemed unworthy of existing, or at least unworthy of being shared.
Precisely. Authenticity itself has become just another high-stakes performance, another product to perfect, another standard to fail at.
We see people like aestheticizing their trauma into a healing journey, complete with specific fonts and branded hashtags.
Instead of just being allowed to experience the difficult, messy, frankly unphotogenic process of actual pain and recovery, the drive is always towards creating a marketable recovery narrative.
That feels like the ultimate trap then, because you can download the boundary setting app, you can know your Enneagram type, you read all the books, you try to optimize your emotional labor.
You do the work.
You do the work, quote unquote, and yet that feeling of being a fraud persists. That imposter syndrome just doesn't budge. Why doesn't the work work?
Because no amount of genuine internal psychological work can fully silence a superego that's been outsourced to an external non-human algorithm.
You're fighting the wrong battle.
They're trying to use internal tools to solve what's become an external systemic problem, the growth you're performing, the self-improvement. It isn't really for the messy, exhausted, unphotogenic self who maybe genuinely hates networking and just wants a damn break.
Who's it for them?
It's almost exclusively for the optimized version of you, the version that will be followed, liked, maybe paid to be listened to, the version that fits neatly into that square frame.
So the symptom of digital perfectionism is that we're constantly trying to heal the self that isn't performing well enough.
Instead of accepting or even just allowing the self that exists regardless of performance metrics.
Wow. Okay. This feels like a good place to bring Freud more directly into the picture. Section 3, the return of the repressed, and rebrand it.
Yes. Let's bring Freud right into the comments section, so to speak. He would likely view the collective digital feed, our timelines, our grids, as a kind of massive dopamine-drenched dream.
A collective dream.
Yeah, repository brimming with symbols and, crucially, carefully managed repressed desires. The unconscious didn't just vanish when the iPhone arrived.
It just found a new place to hang out.
It simply migrated, moved from the psychoanalytic couch to the content grid. Your feed isn't your life, it's symptomatology. It's showing the conflicts.
Okay, if the feed is the collective dream, what specific emotions or experiences are being shoved down, forced into the unconscious? What's being repressed and hidden behind that perfect filter?
Essentially, we're hiding everything that's unmarketable, unaesthetic, unoptimized.
Like what? Give me examples.
We're repressing the entire spectrum of messy, unoptimized human emotion. Profound doubt, bone-deep fatigue, envy, complicated grief that doesn't resolve neatly, unadulterated rage, chronic, soul-crushing loneliness.
All the good stuff.
All the real stuff. Look at content strategy itself. It's fundamentally a strategy of repression, isn't it?
How so?
You don't post your actual breakdown in real time. You wait, you process, maybe recover slightly, and then you stage and post your breakthrough.
Right. The triumphant return.
You don't show the grim reality of burnout, the crying in the bathroom, the missed deadlines. You show the aesthetic, clean lines of your reset routine, your spa day, your green juice.
Your Instagram or TikTok becomes your life's meticulously edited press release.
Exactly. And the messier your actual reality gets behind the scenes, often the cleaner, more aspirational, and certainly more filtered your feed have to become to compensate.
So the digital self becomes this kind of monument, a shrine to the self you wish you were, or maybe the self you think you have to be, to stay viable professionally or romantically.
Yes, and the real breathing you, the one experiencing the doubt and the mess, gets buried alive beneath those perfectly lit squares.
Which brings us to where that energy goes, right? Freud's idea of libido.
Precisely. That leads us to the redirection of that primal energy. Freud's concept of libido, that fundamental life force, the energy driving us towards pleasure, creation, connection, it's being massively redirected in the digital age.
Redirected where?
This is where the concept of sublimation becomes critical. Sublimation is turning unacceptable or risky primal urges into socially acceptable, even lauded forms.
Okay. How does that apply here?
Today, we sublimate our deep biological needs for love, for safety, for belonging into metrics. We channel that energy into chasing likes, shares, follower counts.
So loneliness, that desperate human need to be genuinely seen, witnessed, that gets channeled into content strategy.
It becomes an elaborate mechanism to seek attention, to seek validation, without ever risking the raw vulnerability of true intimacy.
Because asking for connection directly is too risky.
Exactly. We've turned that powerful driving force of libido into an optimized content plan. Instead of, say, directly messaging a friend and saying, hey, I'm feeling really lonely and struggling today, which requires genuine risk, right? They might not respond, they might judge.
Yeah, that's scary.
Instead, we post a meticulously framed photo of a sunset. And the caption is something like, so grateful for stillness.
Hoping for the validation to roll in.
Hoping for that cascade of comments, you're so inspiring, sending love, you're not alone. Likes become the modern, disposable, almost chemical stand-in for love and belonging.
It's a perfect compromise in a dark way.
It is. You get the chemical rush of perceived connection without ever having to confess a vulnerability that might face actual painful rejection.
And we see the same kind of principle with negative emotions too, right? Like anger. Through displacement.
Yes, displacement of emotion is huge online. If we can't scream at, say, a deeply unjust boss because we need the paycheck,
can't risk that.
We redirect that powerful pent-up emotion towards a safer, often brand-safe target.
How does that look online?
That intense, unexpressed rage gets transformed. You don't confront the actual source of the anger. Instead, you turn that raw aggression into maybe a poetic, multi-slide Instagram carousel about setting firm boundaries.
The boundary carousel.
Classic. Or protecting your sacred energy. The underlying emotion, the rage, the feeling of being violated, it's absolutely real. But the expression is curated, aestheticized, and crucially, brand safe. You don't actually fight the power. You just change your bio to something like, in my healing era, unbothered.
While very much being bothered.
While absolutely seething underneath. And perhaps the most sophisticated form of this kind of emotional disguise is what Freud called reaction formation.
Reaction formation, what's that again?
Reaction formation is when we unconsciously express the precise opposite of the emotion we're actually feeling, but find unacceptable.
So if you secretly hate your situation,
your immediate impulse might be to post, feeling so grateful for the grind, absolutely loving this journey, #blessed.
Right, or if you're feeling intense professional envy.
You post an incredibly effusive public congratulatory message about your rival's latest success, gushing about how much they deserve it.
You're trying to convince the world, and maybe yourself.
Exactly. Convince everyone, including yourself, of the goodness and purity of your feelings by actively, performatively broadcasting the exact opposite of your repressed reality.
Okay, this brings us to projection, which I suspect is responsible for a huge chunk of the performative anxiety we feel online.
Oh, absolutely central.
When we're agonizing, worrying, oh God, they'll think this is cringe, or they'll think I'm trying way too hard. Who is the day we're actually afraid of?
We are projecting, 100%. We are taking our own unacceptable, internalized self-judgment, the harsh voice of our own superego, maybe amplified by the digital context.
Our inner critic.
Our inner critic, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're attributing its criticisms onto our audience, onto them. We don't really fear their criticism nearly as much as we fear our own criticism, which we've conveniently outsourced to a million anonymous usernames.
So every time you think, they'll think this is cringe.
The unconscious is whispering back, who exactly is they? Or is it just you, your own internalized critic, wearing their username like a mask?
Projection lets us avoid the painful truth.
That we are, by far, our own harshest, most relentless critics. The internal superego has basically been given a digital army to hide behind. It makes the criticism feel external, less personal, even though it originates within.
Wow. Okay, so that leads us into our final section, Section 4, colonization and the exhausted ego.
Yes. Let's try and synthesize these mechanisms. The repression, the sublimation, the projection into the ultimate consequence. Total exhaustion, burnout.
Because we've moved way beyond just wearing, say, the Jungian persona, the social mask we present to the world.
Far beyond.
We are now seemingly forced to monetize and optimize that mask. The whole concept of building an audience, it's really the performance of an identity, isn't it?
An identity that has been meticulously focus grouped by one's own internalized algorithmic superego.
Focus grouped by your own anxiety.
Pretty much. This is more than just identifying with a persona. I think it's useful to see it as a kind of colonization of the self.
Colonization, that's a strong word.
I think it fits. You didn't just create a persona, you became its content manager, its strategist, its 24/7 PR team. You internalized The gaze of the algorithm, the perceived expectations of the audience, the metrics of success, until their desires started to feel like your instincts. Their analytics started dictating your moods.
So you no longer post to express the self.
You post to confirm the self still exists in the world. The algorithm, the audience, the market have defined. The digital self has effectively colonized the real self, leaving the ego completely depleted, exhausted.
And that exhaustion is so real because the ego is trapped, mediating between two utterly impossible, conflicting demands.
Oh, really?
Your biological human need to be real and authentic, and your social, maybe economic need to be liked, validated, profitable. Your need to rest versus your need to constantly post.
And even our attempts at self-awareness get sucked into this performance trap, don't they?
How so?
We spend so much energy on the work, learning about our attachment styles, supposedly processing trauma, integrating the shadow.
All the therapy speak.
Exactly. But even this vocabulary gets aesthetically optimized. We learn about shadow work, for example, and then what do? We post a highly articulate, intellectualized carousel about integrating the shadow,
while carefully avoiding showing anything genuinely shadowy or unattractive about ourselves.
Exactly. No real mess allowed.
So self-awareness just gives us better captions, more sophisticated ways to describe our neuroses, but doesn't actually free us from performing them.
Largely, yes. That seems to be the trap. The performance persists. The growth we showcase isn't really designed for the genuine, messy self who, again, might hate networking and feels totally overwhelmed by the modern world.
Who is the performance for, then?
It's for the version of us that will maximize engagement, the one that fits neatly into the predefined format for digital success.
Yeah.
We're just running on a psychic treadmill, performing growth for an external judge, which is precisely why that feeling of being an imposter never really subsides, no matter how much work we do.
And this, you argue, leads to the ultimate kind of tragic twist in the whole thing, that digital perfectionism isn't actually about achieving control.
No, paradoxically, it is fundamentally about surrender.
Surrender? How? Surrender of what?
It's the surrender of the messy, unpredictable, spontaneous human experience to the rigid, relentless demands of the system, the algorithm, the market.
We surrender spontaneity.
To content strategy. We surrender intuition.
To analytics.
We surrender messy reality.
To meticulously curated mood boards. We haven't built a self that can withstand market sources. We've dissolved the self into a brand that is entirely subject to market forces. And the profound irony there is that the more seen we become online, the higher the follower count, the more viral the content.
Often the less truly witnessed we feel.
Because visibility isn't connection.
Visibility is not connection. You can have hundreds of thousands of followers and feel profoundly, terrifyingly lonely because maybe no one actually knows the you that doesn't make it into the posts.
The you that exists offline.
That uncurated, unoptimized, unmonetizable self. That's the ghost in the machine we need to talk about.
The ghost in the machine.
Yeah, the authentic self who is still breathing, still existing somewhere under the layers of performance, but is muted, starved of attention, starved of validation because it doesn't fit the brand.
And the core anxiety driving all this digital perfectionism, it isn't really about maximizing likes in the end.
I don't think so. Ultimately, it's about the deep existential fear of the complete erasure of that ghost, that authentic self.
So every time you smooth a wrinkle in Facetune, or crop out the messy background, or polish a phrase until it loses its original spark.
You're not just editing content.
Yeah.
You are engaging in a form of psychic self-sculpture. You're chiseling away the parts of your identity that simply do not perform well enough online.
And that ghost is just waiting patiently behind the screen maybe, wondering when we'll finally grant her permission to just exist without needing external validation.
And she's probably terrified of what would happen if she truly did show up. Because the neurosis, the performance, has become so normalized now that the symptom is the standard requirement for participation.
So the conclusion isn't that we're all fundamentally crazy.
No, not crazy. We are simply exhausted. We are adapting rationally, maybe pathologically, but often brilliantly, to an irrational, fundamentally impossible demand from the digital world.
Which is?
Be real, but make it pretty. Be yourself, but only the optimized version. Only the version that guarantees engagement. It's adaptation, done perfectly, pathologically perfectly.
Wow. That's a devastating but also strangely validating comprehensive analysis. And it forces us, I think, to ask that ultimate Freudian question. Not looking for a simple solution, maybe, but just for a deeper understanding of our current situation. The real issue isn't necessarily whether you should stop posting altogether.
No, the real question is far more personal than that, more immediate. It's what part of yourself, your actual self, have you meticulously deleted, maybe piece by piece, over the years, to make room for this highly optimized performance?
And that leads directly to the final thought we want to leave you with today. You, the listener. The ultimate provocative question for your own reflection. The key isn't just the content you create, but maybe the content you actively choose not to create or not to share. So when was the last time you did something, anything at all, that was solely and completely just for you?
Not for the grid.
Not for growth.
Not for your professional optimization.
Not for the aesthetic. And certainly, absolutely not for the algorithm.
Just for you. The ultimate radical act in this age of pervasive compulsive optimization might actually be incredibly simple. It might just be not posting.